Hello friends and welcome to Fire Emblem Discussion. Thank you to everyone who watched the tier list video yesterday and also commented. I really appreciated all the feedback that everyone gave. We'll definitely be taking a lot of it into account. But today I wanted to go into, before we make the next tier list video, I want to go into how to make a tier list and how to really compare characters and the kind of suggestions I'm looking for. Because while it is really great that you had your own personal experiences, and that's what I ultimately want you all to have with Fire Emblem is your own personal experience that you can remember and enjoy. And I think that's kind of the purpose of the game itself, is to have your own personal experiences with it, right? However, personal experience isn't necessarily the best way to judge characters. Really, the best way is to look at all the facts objectively and do the best you can, like ranking them against each other and comparing characters, right? By looking at all sorts of things like their base stats, their growth rates, their unique ability list, their unique combat art list, their unique spell list, and all sorts of other things that we're going to go over today. So here we have serenusforest.net. I will put the link in the description to this page specifically, and from here you can find just about all the information you need on the characters, classes, and other stuff like abilities, combat arts, and all sorts of things that are going to be useful for you, and of course weapons and forging and whatever else. The Serenus Forest team does a really good job, and they honestly one of the more reliable sources for Three Houses info right now, if not the best source for Three Houses info right now. So feel free to go check that out. And this is where I get all my information from. So to be totally transparent, I'm going to show you everything too. So it's all here. Just go to this website and you can find out max stats, growth rates, base stats, whatever, everything you need to know. So let's go over the process of making a tier list essentially. And I don't want to like go step by step with you, but I do want to share with you how I personally compare characters. Because here's the thing with the tier list: you can't look at one character in a vacuum. You need to compare a character. You need to compare characters to the other characters in the cast, units that do similar things, units that do different things, all sorts of different ways to look at it. You can't just look at a character in a vacuum. So, for example, a lot of people were talking about Dedue in the comments and were upset that I put him low as I did, which was the very bottom. And I admit that might be too low for him. I just put a lot of stock personally into speed, and so I came to the conclusion by looking at his base stats, which we see Dedue's base stats when he joins at level 1. This is what he's got: 7 speed, which is honestly like average-ish. It's pretty good. It's pretty average for level 1 units starting the game, right? But what really hurts him is his growth rates here. He only has 20% speed. 20% speed. So over the course of 10 level ups, he will get 2 points of speed on average. So your Dedue may have gotten way more than that. Your Dedue may have gotten 5 points in 10 level ups or something crazy like that. Like, look, that's really lucky. You know, it's awesome. But you're more likely than not, you're going to end up using this speed growth rate. The way it is, you know, on average, it's going to regression to the mean. On average, you're going to end up with 2 points every 10 levels. But then you think, oh, well, what about class modifiers? What about classes that he would want to go into or has an easy time going into that would help him? So you go to the growth rate of classes here. And, you know, I look at beginner and I think, okay, so his most beneficial would be Myrmidon, although it wouldn't be too hard to get in because D-Swords is easy. Give him that 5 speed, but that's still only 25%, which isn't much better, right? So that's 25 speed growth would be 2.5 points of speed per 10 levels, which isn't very good. Now let's look at intermediate and where he would go. So the common ones for Dedue that everyone, and a lot of you brought it up in the comments, was Armor Knight, which gives him minus 10 speed, so that's only 1 point of speed per 10 level ups. For him, which is bad, right? 1 point of speed for every 10 level ups is horrendously bad. Again, you can get lucky. Your own personal experience may vary, but just on average, that's what's going to happen. And the other one everyone brought up was Brawler. And Brawler growth rates for speed is great. You know, plus 10, that's as good as it gets at this point, right? Plus 10 to his speed gives him a 30% speed growth, which is still only 3 points of speed per 10 levels, which is just not going to cut it, if I'm being honest. 10 speed at level 10, while it isn't bad, Well, actually, that's not going to happen because this is a level 10 class. But here's the thing. His speed is going to be atrocious throughout the entire game, even if you put him into the classes that have the best speed growth, right? Even if you have him in Brawler or you have him in Thief, and then you move him into Swordmaster or Assassin, or Grappler, which would be the one that people would probably argue for this here. Grappler, which is still 10. And then Master, I don't know what you even go to. Great Knight, but you lose 10. So that was my reasoning with Dedue. His speed is so bad, he's gonna get doubled like crazy. I understand, but he has 8, which is as high as it gets, and it's the best in the starting level 1 base defense in the game. But then you consider like, oh, what if you move him to Armor Knight and get the plus 10 from Armor Knight into defense, and then a 60, and his defense quickly like skyrockets. However, in Fire Emblem, it's generally more important to be able to double and to kill things in one round than it is to be able to tank hits. Both are important, of course, but there are units that can generally do both well enough that Dedue really doesn't do a good enough job of killing, is what I'm trying to say. So that's my thought. Those are like the thought process I go through. And if I have more, and then I have more questions, concerns and stuff, I go look at his unique ability list, so things that only he will learn compared to what everyone else will learn. And we look at Dedue, he only learns Battalion Wrath, which is a pretty common one for people to learn. He does make good use of it, but still, it's just the one thing compared to other people who learn some really good dependent abilities and dependent arts. As far as dependent arts go, he learns Vengeance, which could lead to a lot of damage, honestly. And then a bunch of axe stuff, Monster Breaker, Armored Strike, 1-2 Punch is great. Mighty Blow is fine. It's kind of whatever. I'm just not impressed by any of this. I'm not impressed by his base stats, though his defense is pretty good, and his strength is pretty good as well. And everything else is just kind of average, but then his growth rates just kind of hurt him, in my opinion. Like even just 30 dexterity, that could be scary too. You could struggle to hit later on especially if you get unlucky. So it's hard to say. But I do understand where a lot of you are coming from with that. So what I'm trying to say here is that you can't just look at your own personal experience, number one. And number two, you need to look at all the facts and compare them against other characters. You can't just look at them in a vacuum. A lot of people, like some of you brought up that Dedue and Raphael shouldn't be as separate as they are. So that's part of, and that's what I considered, right? It's what I considered. So let's look at their stats and everything. So I'm going to highlight Raphael and go over Dedue with my cursor here. So they both start with 30. Dedue has 1 point of strength more. And then he actually has 1 point of speed more. And 1 point of defense more. So all the stats that really matter a lot, Dedue is beating him in, right? As far as bases go. But then let's go look at growth rates. Again, I'll highlight Raphael and go over Dedue with my cursor. Where you at? So Raphael has the higher HP growth, but by 5 points. That's 1 point of HP every 20 levels. That's not a huge difference. Same strength, same magic. Raphael has higher dexterity. Dedue has higher speed actually, but that's the difference of 1 point every 20 levels. That 5%. Yeah, and Raphael, like generally you look at this and you think, okay, well Raphael is like honestly probably worse than Dedue. Why is Raphael higher? And it's at this point where I looked at their base stats and their growth rates, and I'm like, okay, they're pretty similar. Dedue's probably edging him out, right? Just like barely. So I go look at learned abilities and their dependent abilities, and we look here at Dedue, and he's like, okay, Battalion Wrath. That's not very good. Like it's pretty par for the course, not very special. Doesn't really add anything to the table. And I look at Raphael's and I'm like, okay, Rally Strength and Battalion Wrath. So not only does he have Battalion Wrath just like Dedue, can use it just as well as he can, Raphael also has Rally Strength, which just allows him to give +4 strength to any unit on the map, right? As long as he's adjacent to them. And that is D rank authority. That is super easy to reach. Like within the first couple chapters reach. You're going to reach that relatively quickly, and you'll be able to use Rally Strength for the entire playthrough. And that's kind of what edged him out for me. To me, that was good enough. And that's really, and you may think, oh, that's really splitting hairs for putting them in different tiers. But I think Rally Strength is a huge difference. And then you can also go look at their dependent arts. And we already went over Deduz. And Raphael's, he doesn't have as many. But I don't know. I don't think these make that much of a difference. If I'm being honest, I think they're both fine. And then if you're feeling crazy, you can look at spell lists and everything. But for these two, that doesn't really matter. So yeah, let's go over one more example. Let's go over one more example of how to really do this, rather than looking at a character in a vacuum, but looking at them as part of a whole cast of characters, right? So let's look at one that was hotly debated in the comments was Dorothea and Marianne. I had Dorothea slightly above Marianne, though I'm not entirely sure about it, but they are both in good tier, Dorothea and Marianne. So first off, we go look at their base stats and compare them against each other. So I'll highlight Dorothea up here, and I'll go over Marianne with my cursor, which we'll have to scroll down a little bit here. They barely both fit. Here we go. And if you look at it, you know, they're honestly like they're so similar. They're almost identical to start, right? And you'll see that a lot with characters across different houses. There's generally characters that match up really well, which is interesting, honestly. But Dorothea, the only real difference is that Dorothea has one more point of charm and HP, whereas Marianne has one more point of res. So they're honestly like almost exactly the same there, right? Now we go into growth rates. You just scroll up a little bit, highlight Dorothea, and go over Marianne with the cursor. So if you look at them here, Marianne does have the higher magic growth by 10, but again, 10 points in a growth rate is only, on average, only 1 point per 10 levels, right? And you go across here. Other than that, they're almost identical. Marianne will end up with a little more res by the end, but other than that, they're pretty similar, right? So their base stats and their growth rates, it's like, okay, they're pretty much the same character, right? So what sets them apart? What allows you to tier them? What allows you to put them in different spots? Well, it's all the other stuff. It's their learned abilities, it's their learned arts, it's their learned spells and everything else. So let's go look at learned abilities real quick. So we look at Dorothea, and she just has Hexblade, and we go look at Marianne, and she has Soulblade, which I would say is slightly more useful than Hexblade, but I don't know, that's just me. Look at dependent abilities. Dorothea learns Rally Charm. And in Maddening mode, because again, we're basing this tier list on Maddening mode, Rally Charm is really important. Plus 8 Charm is a 40-point swing in hit rate with a Gambit. A 40-point swing. So you might have a 35% chance to hit, but you use Rally Charm. Guess what? Now you have a 75% chance to hit, which is way more reliable, and like you might actually hit with it, you know? Rally Charm is really good. Other than that, Battalion Desperation, kind of whatever. It's fine. It's good, but it's like, eh. Marianne learns Battalion Renewal. Whatever, you know? So I feel like they're pretty even up until now, but now I'll put a point in Dorothea's favor for a Rally Charm, right? Still pretty similar, though. Rally Charm doesn't make her like a million times better, right? Just makes her slightly better, slightly more useful. So now we move into learn spells. And here we have their Reason magic list. And if you look, it's actually pretty similar. Let's see if we can get them both on the same screen. Here we go. Highlight Dorothea. So Thunder and Blizzard, pretty similar, honestly. But then they both learn Thoron at sea. Dorothea will get there slightly quicker, but it's still, I don't know, they both learn Thoron, which is a great long-range spell. Cutting Gale versus Sagittae, and then Fimbulvator versus Meteor, and then Anya's Arrow. So, obviously, Dorothea does have the slightly more impressive magic list, right? I don't know if Meteor is enough to push her super far above what Marianne has to offer, but it is slightly higher, and it bears mentioning. And it makes, if you want Dorothea to be an attacker, you know, like, she has the slightly better list. And Meteor, you know, long range is never bad. And then, of course, you can go Warlock or Grimoire or something and get Black Magic uses times 2. And then you have more Meteors to use, which can be useful as well. So, again, slight point to Dorothea here. And then we get into learned Faith spells. And Dorothea, we'll get them both on screen. Dorothea learns Heal, Nosferatu, and Physic. Pretty weak, but Physic is really good, right? It's pretty weak here, but Physic, again, really, really good. But we look down here at Marianne, who has Heal, Nosferatu, Physic, Silence, and Aura. So this is slightly better than what Dorothea has to offer, but I would argue that Silence and Aura don't make up for the other things we brought up. I don't think they make up for the lack of a rally on Marianne, whereas Dorothea has Rally Charm, which is, again, really important in Maddening. And Aura, I mean, is fine, but Dorothea also just has the Anya's Arrows, which is just another really hard-hitting magic spell, right? So they kind of, I feel like those are pretty, like, it's like whatever, you know? Those kind of balance each other out. So they're again, still fairly similar, but I just barely edge Dorothea above Marianne because of that rally. Now you may be saying, well, do you put too much stock into rallies? And maybe I do. That's the thing with tier list. Even when you look at all the objective facts, my opinion is still going to be the deciding factor in the end, right? What do I think is more important? But it's an educated opinion, you know? I'm not just looking at my experience and saying, oh, this is what happened, so this is how it is. We're looking at growth rates, base stats, their skills, their learned spells, everything to decide which unit just goes where. So in the comments, I want you to not only tell me your personal experience, not only tell me, oh, this person should be above this person, or this person should be in great tier instead of being in good tier. I want you to tell me, I think Dedue should be in average tier instead of below average, above Raphael, because of this, and this. Like, because of his personal skill that gives him +4 defense with weight and his slightly better stats. Versus Raphael's only quality over Dedue is rally strength. And I think that's more important. You know, so, and that's where it's still going to come down to opinion, but if enough people say it, then, you know, enough people say it. And I'll go along with it. But yeah, give me reasons. Don't just tell me your personal experience. Give me the facts, the hard evidence. Let me know why a character deserves to be higher ranked than another. All right, guys, but I think that's going to be it for today. I appreciate all the support you guys give and all the time and effort you put into watching and writing comments. It's awesome. So thank you so much. If you haven't, check out our Patreon page. It's an awesome way to support the channel. I appreciate all the help and support we can get and keep the lights on here at Fire Emblem Discussion. It really helps us, and it keeps us motivated, and it also helps us continue to make content for you guys. So please go check out the Patreon. Also, you can click the join button by the subscribe button if you haven't. There's some exclusive emotes you can use on the channel, and also you'll have a special badge by your name in live chats and stuff, so make sure to check that out as well. And again, it's another great way to support the channel. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, you know? Subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to support us as well. And I understand that giving your money to someone isn't something you necessarily want to do or ever want to do, personally. You know, sometimes this is, I don't want to give you money. What you can do is share this video or another one of my videos that you really enjoy with a friend or on social media. Every person who sees it helps me a little bit and helps the team here a little bit. So thank you all so much for the love and support you give. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you next time.